Hey everyone, I firmly believe that in due time, how much longer? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do know that in due time, or at least I highly suspect, once again, I can never say with 100% certainty because there's just no way to know. But if I was a betting man, Canadians at some point in time, in the not so distant future, are going to get their day of reckoning. All this buildup in collectivism, of big government, of authoritarianism, of tyranny, of social and economic division and malfeasance, all this stuff, folks, the housing market bubble, the massive amounts of debts and deficits, the unfunded liabilities, the massively failing healthcare system, the disgustingly terrible indoctrination system that used to be called the education system in this country, wokeism, identity politics, targeting people based on nothing more than superficial aspects of who they are, like their skin color, what's between their legs. I mean, like I say, all this stuff, it's all going to come to a head. It's all going to culminate to the point where, like I say, things get so bad in this country that people at that point, it will be at that junction, they will wish desperately that they could hit pause and rewind and go back and do what needed to be done back then so that they didn't have to go through the hell that they're about ready to go through, or they're getting ready to go through. But of course, always, as with all times in history, by then it'll be too late. And I got to tell you, folks, as a truck driver, someone who drove long haul for many, many years of my life, if that industry gets massively or negatively affected by these vaccine mandates, the outcome and the ramifications will be quite severe. Headline of CBC News: Politics. Critics industry call on Ottawa to reconsider trucker vaccine mandate to protect supply chains. Conservatives trucking industry say mandate will damage Canada's already fragile supply chains. It's being reported by Nick Boisvert, January 6, 2022. The federal government risks hitting Canada's fragile supply chain with another shockwave if it proceeds with a planned vaccination mandate for truckers, says the Conservatives and industry groups. Ottawa will begin requiring proof of vaccination for all truckers starting January 15th. Some warn that the mandate will sideline thousands of workers in an industry already suffering from driver shortages. There are serious consequences to the supply chain if this policy remains in place, said MP Melissa Lantsman, the Conservatives' transport critic. I don't quite understand how the Liberals haven't given Canadians and the industry the assurance they need that this doesn't get worse. Lantsman sent a letter to Transport Minister Omar Agabra this week asking his government to do more to support the trucking industry if the mandate is introduced as planned. Global supply chains have been under immense strain throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, resulting in widespread shipping delays and shortages of certain products. Those worried about the government's plan to require a vaccine for truckers say the loss of more drivers could threaten the movement of essential supplies like food and construction materials and make it hard for small businesses to deliver their products to customers. The Canadian Trucking Alliance, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and Canadian manufacturers and exporters have all asked the federal government to either eliminate or postpone the mandate. The Liberal government has not indicated it intends to alter or delay the mandate. The CTA estimates that about 10 to 20% of Canadian truckers, between 12,000 and 22,000 workers, will be forced off the job when the mandate is enforced. This loss would worsen the plight of what the group describes as a struggling industry. Canada already faced a shortage of 20,000 drivers in the spring of 2021. Anyways, folks, I want to keep these videos relatively short. But yeah, when you're talking about the trucking industry, and yeah, I'm a little bit biased because I'm a truck driver, but I'm also much more knowledgeable than most as it pertains to the trucking industry because I was part and parcel of it, right? But yeah, like I say, if trucks stop, I mean, even I was reading a little bit further down in there, they say like 70% of everything is moved by trucks, right? Well, some stuff moves by rail, but even the stuff that moves by rails, let's say rails and airplanes and all that stuff, right? Which is what would make up the rest of that 30%. But yeah, that 30%, it's still got to get to its final destination by a truck. Now, I will admit there are some big industrial type businesses or factories who have rail yards and rail lines that run directly into their business. So there wouldn't be any trucking necessarily for that. But that still only gets it to that big distribution center, let's say, right? It's still got to get to your store, right? You don't go buy your final end products from the manufacturer themselves. So there's still trucking. In reality, trucking is involved in basically 100%, right, of all goods or things that are moved or supplies that are moved around in the economy, right? So 70%, I mean, that's already a high enough number. But in reality, like I say, we're talking about if the trucking industry is affected in any way, yeah, it's going to have massive ramifications and implications for every one of us, folks. Not just some Canadians, all of us. Anyways, I'm moving on to the next video. This is Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.